Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Lowry, and I am a traveling storyteller. It's my privilege to travel to Kearney, Nebraska, due to COVID. You ever heard of it? Yeah. We rescheduled my trip to Kearney 3 times, but I'm finally here. And now that things are opening up, I want you to come and visit me in South Carolina. We love to welcome people from all over the world. So I thought what I would do today is I would give you a tour of our state through stories. I would also like to say hi to everybody who's logged on from their school, wherever, and watching through that little camera sitting in the middle of our gym. Everybody look at the camera and go, hello! You should do it the South Carolina way. You go, hey! Good. All right. So if you were to come to my state of South Carolina, we could begin a tour up in the mountains. There's just a little section of our state called the Upcountry because it's very mountainous, just a small section of the state, known as the Blue Ridge Mountains of the Appalachians. Now, some people who are not familiar with my section of the country say Appalachia. That's not, no, don't say it. That's not how you say it. You say Appalachia. If you say it wrong, I'll throw an apple at you. In Appalachia, they tell many Jack tales. Do you know when you were a little kid and you heard about Jack and the Beanstalk? Yeah. Fellow, Jack, he's my best friend. Jack been around the world on a mule. And when you get big, like you kids, he starts killing giants and stuff on a regular basis. Yeah. Once Jack was sitting around the house with his brothers, Will and Tom and their mom. You know, all them stories, they don't never tell nothing about their daddy. I don't know if he died or run off or what happened to him, but it's just always mama and them boys. Well, Will and Tom and Jack, they sit around with their mama. She's reading the newspaper. And she seen an article in there how the king, he had declared that he was going to clear some land and he was hiring workers to chop trees for him. And she said, we're just as poor as Joe's turkey. I wish one of you boys could go work for the king. But Will, the oldest one, he jumped right up and he said, Mama, I'll go work for the king. She said, you're a good boy, Will. You're a good boy. Help follow Mama out like that. Here, let me send you with a sack of lunch for your work day. So she got a sack. She put some hard cheese and some salt bread down in that sack, and Will lit out. Well, he went over to the king's house, and the king struck a bargain with him. And he said he'd pay him 10 cents an hour for chopping trees. That's good money back in them days. So Will got him a good sharp axe, and he went up to the top of a big high mountain where the king wanted all the trees chopped down so he could plant up there. And he put his lunch sack under a shade tree. He picked out a big old tree that he was going to chop down, and he hauled off and he took a big swing with that axe. And when he chopped it into the side of that tree, he just went quark all over. Has that ever happened to you? You go quark, like you just kind of like get shivers for no reason whatsoever. You know what that is? Somebody has stepped on a place you're going to be buried someday. Well, he left that axe stuck up inside that tree, and he ran right home. And he said, Mom, there's something awful over there on the king's new ground. He said, I took one chop inside of the tree, I just went quark all over. She said, ooh, something stepped on a place you're going to be buried. You better stay close to the house. And then Tom said, Mama, there ain't nothing over there that's going to hurt you. Let me go and chop trees for the king. She said, all right, Tom, if you want to go, I pack your lunch for your work day. So she got him a sack, put some hard cheese and soft bread in it, and he lit out. Well, he went over there where his brother had been working, and he put his lunch sack right next to his brother's under a shade tree. There was that axe stuck up in the side of that other tree he was trying to cut. He pulled the axe out, and he pulled back, and he hauled off and gave it a chop. You know how when you chop with a tree, especially out in the woods, you expect to hear an echo like chop, 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 chop. I ain't what Tom heard. He went chop, and what come back to him was sound like something going grab with your breath. He ran right home. He said, Mama, there is something off over there on the king's new ground. I took a chop inside the tree, and I heard something go. Sound like a grave grabber. You better stay close to the house. Well, then Jack jumped up. He said, Mama, let me go. She said, Jack, didn't you hear your brothers? You might get killed. He said, well, am I not? Well, I ain't gonna hold you back. If you wanna go, I'll let you go. Now, here, your brother's done packed off all the good food I had in the house. I have to do the best for you. I don't have no more soft bread. All I got is this old crumbly cornbread. She put some cornbread in the sack. She said, I ain't got any good hard cheese. I got some butter. She's been churning butter. There's a big ball of butter that floated up in the top of the churn. She said, I didn't even have time to squeeze the milk out of it. I'll send you with that old milky butter. She put that down in the sack, and Jack lit out. Well, he got up there where his brothers had been working, and their lunch sacks was gone. Some had ate up the cheese, the bread, and the sacks too. So Jack didn't leave his lunch sack laying there. He tied it on his belt, let it hang down to his side. And then he pulled that axe out of that tree and he stuck it down the other side of his belt like a lumberjack carries his tools. And he went to climbing way up high in that tree. He figured if he got way up high, he could look off either side of the ridge, top of the mountain, and see what that was, making them choir sounds that scared his brothers. While he was up there looking, there's a little brown bird coming flying by, a little Jenny Wren, and he wasn't paying attention where it was going, probably because it seen a man in the top of a tree where you don't normally see a fella, and it ran right into a tree trunk and brained itself. Poor little bird went wham, and it fell back on a tree branch and it's like, poor little thing. Jack said, oh, little bird, I didn't mean for you to brain yourself like that. Here, let me help you. He reached in his lunch sack and pulled out some of that cornbread. He said, peck on this. That bird hopped up in his hand, was pecking on that cornbread, and Jack closed his hand right over that bird. And he took it and put it down in his shirt pocket. He said, now, just sit there and rest like in a little bird nest, and when you get feeling better, I'll let you fly off. He went back to looking, and all of a sudden he heard something, what are you doing up higher in my tree? Jack looked down, there's a big old booger man, a big old giant, about 9 foot tall, standing at the bottom of that tree. He grabbed hold of the tree trunk, he's trying to shake Jack loose. Jack said, whoa, 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 whoa. He said, I'm up here cutting trees for the king. He said, you ain't cutting no trees for the king. This sure is my land. He said, no, this land belongs to the king. And if you don't like it, we can have ourselves a little contest. And if you win the contest, you can tear me to pieces. And if I win the contest, I'm going to kill you. That old giant said, what kind of contest we going to have? Jack said, well, how about if we was to have us a rock throwing contest? That old giant said, you ain't gonna win no rock throwing contest. I'm way bigger than you are. He ran over to the side of the mountain and pulled up a big rock. He flung it up in the air, and that rock shot way up in the sky. And then he come whistling back down through the air and slammed in the ground, marred up in the mud. He said, you ain't gonna throw no rock at that. Jack said, well, you a big old giant, and you throwed a big old rock. I'm just a little old giant. Can I throw a little rock? He said, you can throw any rock you want. So Jack reached in his shirt pocket and pulled out that little brown bird. He said, I'm going to throw this little brown rock right there. That giant's too dumb to know the difference between a brown rock and a brown bird. Jack threw that bird up in the air and it flew up and up till it's gone. That old giant said, golly, Jack, you throw the rock so high it ain't never going to come down. Jack said, yep, I won the contest. You know what that means? No, I'm going to have to kill you. Lay your head down this tree branch. That old giant laid his head down. Jack whipped up the axe and chopped his head right off. Rolled over to the king's house, and the king said, look at there. Said, I was going to give you 10 cents an hour for chopping trees. I give you $1,000 for every giant's head you bring me. Jack said, $1,000? You got more giants in your land? He said, oh, yeah, that's the baby. He's got 2 big brothers, mean suckers. They're twins, and they got 2 heads on each. Oh. Jack said, 2 heads on each? He said, $4,000 that kind of cut. He said, I'll be back for dark. Jack went right back over there. He climbed back up in that tree. He was looking around. All of a sudden, he heard them giants coming running up from the backside of that mountain. All 4 of them heads was hollering and yelling, get down out of that tree. You better get down out of that tree. How you get down out of that tree? Them old giants had 4 heads. They could have sung harmony from the Shake Note hymn book, except they was heathen. They didn't know nothing about that. Jack said, now look here, boys. He said, I'm a cutting trees for the king. And if y'all don't like it, well, we have ourselves a little contest. And if I win the contest, I'm going to kill you. If you win the contest, you can eat me. They said, what kind of contest we going to have? We're going to have a contest. We're going to do a contest. Jack said, how about we have a rock squeezing contest? Well, they want to know how that would work. He said, let's see who can squeeze a rock so hard they get milk to run out of it. Well, them old giants, they grabbed up rocks and they were smashing them up into gravel. They never could get milkman out of a rock. Jack better work up a sweat. He said, now look at here, I'll show you how it's done. He reached in his lunch sack, pulled out that big white ball of butter his mom had given. It looked like a creek stone. He squished down on it and the milk started oozing twixt his fingers. Them old giants said, golly, Jack, you a strong man, squeeze milk out of a rock. He said, yep, I won the contest. You know what that means? No, I'll have to kill you. Lay your heads down this tree branch. They laid their heads down. Jack whipped out that thing, chopped their heads off, rolled them right over the king. King gave him $4,000. Well, he had 4,000 from them two twins. He had 1,000 from that other, $5,000. He rolled up all that cash money, stuck it in the pocket of the bib of his overalls, and pulled out for home. And the king called out at her. He said, Jack, you wouldn't want to double your money. Jack said, now how would I do that? He said, well, I was afraid to tell you because I thought you'd get scared and run off. There's one more giant left in the land. He's them boys' daddy, and he's the worst of all of them. He's got 5 heads on him. He said, 5 heads? He said, $1,000 a head. I'll be back right quick. He ran back over there to that tree. He grabbed up that axe. He went to slamming on that tree, making a bunch of noise to get that old giant's attention. Here come that giant running up from the backside of the mountain. All 5 of them heads was a cussing every breath. Shut up! Jack said, stop that cussing. Your boys was cussing and it offended me, and I chopped their heads off. That old giant said, I'll watch my mouth. He said, now look here. He said, I'm chopping trees for the king. If you don't like it, have some sort of contest, and if you win a contest, you can turn me to pieces. If I win a contest, I'm going to kill you. Old giant said, what kind of contest we going to have? Jack said, well, I was so busy killing you boys, I didn't have time to eat me nothing. Let's have us an eating contest. Well, the giant figured he could win that. He had 5 heads on him. He could eat way more than Jack could. He said, come on, Jack, I'll do the cooking. And they went down the backside of that mountain, and way back yonder in the woods, that old giant had a giant's lair, and he pulled out all kind of provisions. He made a whole side of beef and a big slab of ribs, and there's cornbread and light bread and big hunks of yellow cake, and there's field peas and green beans and Irish taters and sweet taters, big jars of milk. He set it all out on a big old tablecloth, and Jack sat on one side, and that giant sat on the other, and that old giant commenced to rake it in. Blues was flying every which way. Jack just had a little bowl of soup. He kept slurping that soup. After a while, that giant stopped to wipe his 5 faces. Now, what that giant didn't know was Jack had taken that lunch sack his mama gave him, and since he emptied it out of the cornbread and the butter, he stuck it down in his shirt. And every time he'd take a slurp of soup, he'd pour most of it down into that sack. Pretty soon that sack was swelling up under his shirt, and it's making him look like he was getting big and fat. When that giant stopped to wipe his 5 faces, he said, look at there, Jack, look at there. You're getting big and fat like Santa Claus, and pretty soon you ain't going to be able to eat no more, and I'm going to win the contest. Jack said, no, I don't never get full. If I start to fill up, this here's what I do. And he grabbed a knife from the table, stuck it in that sack, ripped it open, all that soup went flew out on the floor, and the giant said, don't it hurt when you stack yourself like that? Jack said, no, it just pinches like little bee sting. That giant said, don't you go nowhere. He grabbed up a knife, stuck it in his innards, and ripped himself wide open. He staggered around about 3 times before he hit the ground. Jack had lopped them 5 heads off, and he went home $10,000 richer, and that was the end of that. Now, if you were to travel from the mountains down toward the middle of our state, well, first you would come to, I shouldn't tell you all this, but you need to know. You know how you're driving for a long time, and you get sleepy, and you fall asleep against the window of the car, and you're like, first time I went to South Carolina, when my family moved there from another state, we started in the mountains. We were going to drive down to the sea. So we came down through the Appalachian Mountains where they tell the jack tales, and then we came into what we call the Piedmont. It's farm country. And you all live in farm country. You grow corn and cows. We grow peaches. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of peaches. And in the spring, when you come up over a hill, you can see all those peach trees with their pink blossoms. And even if you're not in love, it'll just make you want to get married to somebody. It's so good. But the peach blossoms only last, a couple weeks and then they're gone. So when you drive through the Piedmont on that highway, they want something else for you to look at. So they built a big water tower in the shape of a giant peach. Now, I was fast asleep with my head smacked up against the window, and my dad starts yelling, wake up, there's something you're going to want to see. There's only one in the world. It's the giant peach in Gaffney, South Carolina. Wake up, you want to take a picture of it. So I woke up and I looked real quick, and we went right past the water tower, so the giant peach is hovering just above us. You know how a peach, they're round, but they kind of have like two halves and they kind of go around and they come to a crack in the middle. I looked up and there's two giant things with a crack in the middle. And I was like, ah! It looks like a giant baby sponge with a bad crack. It's the awfulest thing you've ever seen in your life. So I'm not even going to stop in the Piedmont and tell you a story. Just let you know when you drive under the giant peach, but keep going as fast as you can. And then you come down into the sand hills. That's where we get our nickname. South Carolinians are called sandlappers because a long time ago, George Washington was driving or riding a horse up and down those sand hills. The farmland there is very poor. You can't really farm much there because the soil is too sandy. And he said these poor sandhillers are about to starve to death. Somehow sandhiller got changed to sandlapper and the nickname stuck. We've been sandlappers ever since. Every state has a nickname, I suppose. I only know some of them. I know in Nebraska, people from here are called cornhuskers. If you're from Georgia, they call you a peach. If you're from North Carolina, they call you a tar heel. If you're from Florida, they call you a cracker. If you're from New York, they call you a knickerbocker. If you're from New Jersey, they call you all kinds of things, and people from New Jersey will call you something right back. Everybody has a nickname. We are sandlappers. And then when you go beyond the sand hills, you come down into the coastal plains. We have intercoastal plain, outer coastal plain, coastal zone. That doesn't really matter. It's just flat as a pancake. One day, I was driving through the coastal plain. I had gone to visit some cousins in Georgia, and I used to be a school teacher. And I didn't want to be a school teacher anymore, but I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be doing. I really like to tell stories, but I wasn't sure that that should be my job. And so I like to think when I drive, get lots of things worked out in your brain while you're driving along. And so I got off the interstate highway because, on the interstate, what do you see? Nothing. And I thought, let me get off on a country road. I might see something like a giant peach bud or something. So I got off on a country road and I was driving along and I did see very interesting stuff. I saw a cow and a cow and a cow and a camel. So I said, I would want a camel. Well, I turned around in a little church parking lot and I came back, and sure enough, standing behind 3 strands of barbed wire by the side of the road in Orangeburg, South Carolina, was a big dromedary camel chewing cud like, and looking at me as if to say, so. And then I noticed there was a sign that said O'Kane's Wild Animal Park, and there was a sign pointing up a gravel driveway. And I thought, I have to see this. So I drove up this gravel driveway. It was just a regular house. And there was like extra area where you could park the cars. And I pulled in there, and this guy comes riding over to me. I learned later his name was Mr. O'Kane. He came driving over to me on a riding lawnmower, and he had a trailer hitched to the back of the riding lawnmower. And in that trailer was all kinds of produce that had not sold at the local grocery store, which is called the Piggly Wiggly. There was carrots and cabbages and lettuces and corn, all that mess. And he pulls up and he says, "You want to see my zoo?" I said, "Well, I saw your camel standing by the side of the road, and I was curious." He said, "It cost you $4. I said, "I have $4. So I got $4 out of my wallet, handed it to him. He said, "Get on the back of this riding mower with me, and I'll just give you a driving tour of my zoo." So I climb on the back of this riding mower, and off we go. We rode out to a field beyond his house. There were all these mounds of dirt. He turned off the riding mower, and he said, "Now just sit still for a minute, and you'll see prairie dogs." And all of a sudden, prairie dogs start popping up, like that over here, and then one's over here is like a lookout. Big eagle flew over, they're like, look, boom, they all go down again. Where's the I said, prairie dogs are like, do you know prairie dogs here? Do you know in Nebraska? I know they have them further west, I wasn't sure, but you don't see them in South Carolina. I said, prairie dogs are like a Western thing. How'd you get prairie dogs in South Carolina? He said, did you go to school? I said, yeah, I went to school. He said, you didn't learn very much. He said, you get a boy prairie dog and a girl prairie dog, throw them in a hole, and it's spring prairie dog town. You got prairie dogs everywhere. That's how you get prairie dog town. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. So he said, now, I can show you some other stuff. He cranked up the motor again. We drove past a big fence. There was an ostrich behind the fence. He said, you want to feed the ostrich? I said, sure. So he handed me a carrot. He said, now just reach up and the bird will grab the carrot right out of your hand and swallow it. You would think an ostrich with that long, skinny neck would swallow a carrot long ways. It swallowed the thing sideways. It looked like it had gulped a pencil. You can see that carrot go all the way down to its stomach. Then we drove past a family of raccoons, and we had lived in a big hollow tree. And we pulled up to this little barn, not a real barn like you keep horses or tractors in, just like, like the little shed you put your lawnmower and bicycles in, like that. And it had a huge lock hanging from the hasp on the door. He turns off the door and he jumps off, he starts working a combination on this lock. He said, this here is my snake house. Just sounds nasty. It pretty much was. He opens this thing up and I thought, it won't be too bad. It'll just be like some snakes in fish tanks, like at a pet store. He had it all done up in there like a jungle with plants and a little waterfall. And those snakes just crawling around. I said, I'm not going in there. He said, they won't hurt you. I said, I know, because I'm not going in there. He said, well, I won't make you go in the snake house. But he said, I'm not going to take no. After we feed the camel, you have to walk into the alligator pit. I was like, alligator pit? So we fed the camel. We go. He has a pond. All around the pond, this big high fence. He unlocks the gate, swings over, and he says, I got 10 alligators in here. Now, it was early spring. It was a cool day. He said, their blood's not pumping real good because they're cold-blooded animals. He said, don't worry about it. He said, I'm going to walk you around and show you. Well, there was a little island in the middle of the pond. There were a couple alligators on the pond. There were some alligators on the far bank. I started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So did you say there were 10 alligators in here? He said, oh yeah. He said, don't worry. If you're afraid where that 10th one might be behind you. He said, it's not. He said, I got a mama gator who hatched a clutch of eggs, and you can see her. He said, if you want to see a mama alligator with her babies, all you have to do is right here by the bank is grab a hold of this tree limb and kind of swing down, and there's a hole back in the mud bank, and you'll see her back in there, and she'll come crawling out with all the babies on her back. But when she crawls out, you need to get back up the bank really fast because she don't like it when anybody's messing with her babies. Yo, I did it. It was like I was outside of my body watching myself do something stupid. I grabbed a hold of a tree branch and I swung down. Sure enough, I mean a 10-foot alligator comes crawling out of this mud cave and she's going, got all these little babies climbing my back. Man, I scrambled up that bank so fast, I got my $4 worth right there. I said, I'm done. I want to go back to the car. He took me back to the car. I said, you have all these exotic animals. He had wallabies, the smaller sized kangaroo. He had all kinds of exotic animals. It was really nice. And I said, what do you do with all this stuff? And he said, school kids come, we do field trips, I teach them all about the animals. And I said, how did you get a zoo in Orangeburg, South Carolina? He said, boy, I want to tell you something. And he said, when I was a kid, my dad, I always wanted to be a zoologist. I said, I'm going to go to the University of South Carolina and study animals. I'm going to become a zoologist. And my daddy said, there ain't no money in that. You're going to work in construction just like me. And he said, I was not brave enough to tell my daddy that that's not what I wanted to do. He said, so I never went to college. I just graduated high school. I worked in construction. I inherited my dad's company, and I worked construction for 30 years, and I hated every minute of it. But when I finished, I had saved all my money, and I bought myself a zoo. And then he looked me right in the eyes, and he said, don't wait 30 years to do what you really want to do. So you know what I did? My hand on a stack of Bibles. I got in my car, I drove home, I called my principal, and I said, love the kids, enjoy working for you, but it's not what I really want to do. And I quit my job and became a professional storyteller 22 years ago. And that's the end of that. Sometimes when I'm told stories, I like to stop and answer a few questions. I saw young kids this morning, kindergarten, first and second grade. I don't let them ask questions because, bless their heart, they don't know how to ask questions. They're just like, my shoes are purple. Like, that's not a question. Now, if you have a question about my job as a storyteller, what states I have visited, what my dog's name is, just throw your hand up or throw up, either way. Yes, pink shirt right there. Yes, ma'am. What's your question? What age was I when I started? The first place that I went to tell stories? You'll think I'm making this up, but it's absolutely true. I had a friend who was a school principal, and you know what he had at his school? A zoo. He had a llama, a pig, Patagonian cavies, whole bunches of rabbits, chickens, goats, sheep, ducks, all at his elementary school. And he said, I would love for you to come to my school and tell about how you became a storyteller because you visited a zoo. And so that's one of the first places that I told stories 22 years ago. Yes.
What encouraged you to be a storyteller?
What encouraged me to be a storyteller? When I was your guys' age, I had a babysitter who would tell us stories that were so scary we could not sleep at night. And I would be like, I want to do that. And I would love it. And so she was also my drama teacher in high school. And so she taught me how to tell stories. And that she was a big encouragement to me. Yes. What was the first story that I told? I can tell you. You want me to tell you? Yeah. I can tell you. So let me tell you this, then I'll tell you that, and then we'll be done. A lot of people who don't know anything about storytelling, what they do know is they want to hear a ghost story. Yeah. And so I went to a historic graveyard in my hometown in Summerville, South Carolina, and recorded a whole bunch of ghost stories in the graveyard. Those are available on my website. Now, if you want different stories, you can go to my YouTube channel. You have a YouTube channel? It's my name, Storyteller Tim Lowry. I gave your teachers a little piece of paper. They can take it home. You can QR code me. Like, look, there he is. He's on YouTube. If you like what you see on YouTube and you want even more, then you can purchase ghost story downloads from my website. If you use the QR code on paper, you get a really good price. If you lose your paper, the coupon code is the name of your town, Kearney. We'll get you a good price on ghost stories. Now, the very first ghost story that I learned to tell was just plain goofy. And that principal who hired me to tell stories, years later, we worked together for 18 years, and then he died. And it was very sad because the children of his school loved him dearly. I loved him dearly. Yeah, he fed my family with paychecks all the time. And his family said, at his funeral, would you tell his favorite story? And I was like, oh, y'all, this is not something you should tell at a funeral. And they said, oh, no, he would love it. He would absolutely love it. He used to sit in the library and wave my paycheck over his head and go, you're not going to get this unless I hear my favorite story. He made me tell it every time I visit. It's absolute goofiness. So if you like goofy scary, this one's for you. If you like scary, then you should log on to my website. All right, so hands down. That was the last question, and here's the last story. When I was a little kid, I used to plunder. Did you ever plunder when you were a little kid? Oh, you know what that is, don't you? That's when you sneak and you get your mama's pocketbook and you open it up on the big side where the money is. And you take out her lipstick and take the lid off, push it all the way up, and use it like a magic marker and draw pictures all over the mirror. That's wonderful. Or you wait until your mom is in another part of the house and you go in the kitchen and you screw the lid off that big jar of white flour stuff and pour some of that on the counter and then go 1, 2, 3. It makes a big cloud all over the sink. That's plundering. When I was a little kid, I was a good plunderer. One day, my mama was running the vacuum cleaner, and I knew that she couldn't hear me, so I decided I would plunder. I went into the bathroom, and I climbed up on the potty. Don't plunder in the potty, that's not a good place. I climbed up on the sink, and I opened up the little doorways above the sink where my mommy keeps medicine. I took down a big box of medicine. I had seen my mom take that stuff. I knew how to work it. So I filled up a glass with water. And then I opened up a little package and I took out 2 big pills. And I plopped them down the glass and the water started going. And it looked like 7-Up. And I thought, I think I'll drink it. So I put it right up to my lips. Ew. It did not taste like 7-Up. I thought maybe it needed more pills to make it taste better. So I opened up another package of those big pills and popped 2 more in the glass. And now the water was going, it looked just like a big bottle of 7-Up. I put it right to my mouth. Ugh. I don't think this is how they make 7-Up. Do not try this at home. I put it right into the sink and it blew. And that gave me a good idea. What if I put the stopper in there and I filled the sink way up and I put a lot of those big pills in there? So I put in the stopper, I turned on the H knob and the C knob, and when I came up and I turned it off quick, and then I opened 6 packages of the big pills and popped them all in the sink, and the water was like, it looked like a washing machine without the lid on, and then it started going right over in the floor. I knew if my mom saw the mess I was making, she would make me get in big trouble. So I had to pull the plug and let it go. I pushed my sleeve way up past my elbow and I listened. My mom was still running the vacuum cleaner. She couldn't hear me. And I shoved my hand down in the bubbly water and all the bubbles went boom. That was fun. But I had to pull the plug and let it go. I felt the plug and I yanked it out. It sucked me down under the sinkhole. I was stuck down under the sinkhole where the pipes are twisted like the letter S. And my head was down where my feet were supposed to be. And my feet were where my head was supposed to be. And I was all twisted in the middle of the water. So, she was in the living room the and then I heard it. He came up from down below and said, I'm going to get you, little boy. I didn't know what that was. I didn't want to find out what that was. The vacuum cleaner, she was running all over the house looking for the long stick with the second thing on the end of it. I'm going to get you, little boy. It was the Drake Joe man. He lives in the 70s, and he came up to get me. He was covered in hair and slime and had toothpaste all over it. My mom grabbed the stick with the second thing on the end of it. She sucked it up the hole, and she started to pull. And Drake Joe man grabbed me by the ankle, and he started to drag me down. And I was caught in the middle like a tug of war. And finally, my mom pulled me up out of the sinkhole and cleaned me all up. And I'll tell you, I don't ever plunder again.